I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, is that dickhead in a flannel really going to talk to us about footy? Yeah, I am. Because 10 awesome things need to be talked about when it comes to round 7, and the Brownlow update needs to happen as well. So sit back, relax, here is your round 7 review.
Have they got a Sunday special to go with Anzac Day? Oh, so special! It's getting better and better for Jack!
Apart from pure Richmond domination and West Coast being really shit unless your name is Greg Clark, there wasn't really a lot to say about this game, so I did what anyone without self-esteem does. They went on Twitter. And I figured out that a lot of fans are talking about the fact that the AFL have really fucked up the fixturing for this game, or there's been a lot of complaints about fixturing, and whilst yes, I completely understand that free-to-air TV does mean a lot to a lot of people, and we want to have the best games possible. However, having one stinker isn't really going to cost us that much in the long run. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with the game's rights or anything like that for the future. We need to deal with that as it comes. But being that angry at the fact that, yeah, this Friday night game was shit, and yes, the Good Friday games weren't great either, the AFL don't know who's good at this time of year. It didn't go their way, we understand that, but if you're sitting down on your Friday already expecting a certain style of game, you're going to be disappointed more times than not. We look forward to the next free-to-air game and hope that that one's better. But at the end of the day, it was a pantsing, it wasn't that fun to watch, I understand that, but the AFL, in terms of people watching, are going to lose more out of this than you are as a fan. Yes, if you're a Richmond fan, like my missus, you really enjoyed this. Although, there were times in this game where she was bored too, and she loves them more than anyone I've met. So, yeah, as a fan, the spectacle wasn't great. But being almost offended by it is completely stupid. If you want to be offended at the fact that West Coast senior players look absolutely shot. Now, is that COVID? I don't know. I've been lucky enough to not have COVID yet. But at the end of the day, let's move on. It's now Sunday night when I'm recording this. It's going to be Monday morning when you're watching this, or Monday or Tuesday, or whenever you get a chance to watch this. The game's already going to be forgotten, and we're going to have a cracker on free-to-air pretty soon, and we're all going to forget about it. So let's move on. Freo have exposed the secret to beating Geelong in Geelong, and it's not bully them around the midfield, it's not putting plenty of score on the board, as we saw the Dockers only score 69 points on the weekend. It's having your wingmen have godlike performances. In the 2015 qualifying final, it was Freo who got on top of the Cats, thanks in large parts in the second half to Stephen Hill absolutely dominating, including coming off the bench and kicking the sealer, whereas former Saint Blake Acres had an entire wing to himself for 90% of the game, and not only played his best game for Freo, but for his career, continually torching the Cats all over Cardinia Park. Now, the Cats, they do have some worries when it comes to going forward, considering they had over 50 inside 50s for only 16 scoring shots. That's something they'll need to address and get better at. But as for now, Fremantle are arguably the third, or at worst, the fourth best team in the competition, which at round 7, I don't think anyone saw coming. Their defense is extraordinary. I do worry about their ability to score, but we've said that about Fremantle for many a year. And don't forget, Matt Taberner and Sean Darcy weren't there, who have kicked goals in most games this year. Freo are going to be fine and continue to get good. The Cats, is it a blip? Who knows, but there is plenty of improvement that needs to come out of that group. A massive win for Freo, a huge congrats to them, and I think Alex Pearce is just showing how good of a defender he is with continuity in his game. Even the casual fans now know that this is a man not to be messed with, and neither are the Dockers. So if you followed my Supercoach content for a while, you'll know that when I trade a bloke in, they're going to absolutely stink the week that I bring them in, and the AFL media now are doing that to themselves, because the morning of the Adelaide GWS game, an article about how Lachie Whitfield was out of touch and out of form was one of their most read pieces for a while, I heard someone say, but it didn't matter because, yes, Lachie didn't get a lot of the ball. I think he only had 18 or 19 touches, but he kicked 3 goals, played a wing half-forward role, and took the piss out of the Crow. So, AFL media, just get me on board. You can hire me. I can write. I've written a lot. I'm comfortable in front of a camera. Get me on board, because clearly we are kings of the jinx. Whitfield, like the Giants, were genuinely outstanding. Adelaide, I know what you're going through. I am a Hawk supporter. You're going to have fantastic performances. You're going to have really shit performances. This was a really shit performance against a team that essentially are trying to save their coach's job, and they did a really good job of doing that. Full credit to the Giants. The Crows, they'll go back to the drawing board and try to come up with something better, but there's a lot to be said about how poor the Bulldogs' forward line is functioning, considering Jesse Hogan, who hasn't had an extraordinary year, took that back line to pieces when the likes of Jamari Ugle-Hagan, Aaron Norton, and Cody Waitman couldn't do the same just the week before. A really good win for the Giants. So if you followed the channel from Talking Hawks, this will not only resonate with you, but you'll know I'm telling the truth. But we knew Dylan Moore was going to be something special. Hawthorn fans, after he was re-rookied, we all kind of went, is there something there? And then he went to a high half forward role, and within a month of 2021, we knew he was going to be special. We branded him on Talking Hawks as the 19-1 man, and he was the high half forward that would get 19 touches and kick a goal, a real dependable type. Now, considering that he'd had, I think, only the 8 disposals in the first half and kicked a goal, he was kind of on track for that target before he genuinely exploded in the third quarter, having 15 disposals and was the hardest running player on the field. And yes, that includes the Melbourne players, who are the best energy users in the competition. Sure, some of Dylan Moore's running was unrewarded, but for 15 touches, we're not going to complain. He also ended the game with 10 disposals to take his tally to a career best 33. And as a Hawthorn fan, I am really, really pleased. Champion Data rated him elite for his position, and every footy fan who didn't know him enough scoffed, turned their head up and went, who is this guy? I hope you know who he is now, because this young man is a star, and as a high half forward, is going to be one of the best in that position for a while to come. I know I'm talking a lot about one player here and an entire game. I was really happy as a Hawks fan that we continually took the game on and we didn't give up the entire time. The closest any teams got to Melbourne, yes, they had 5 really good players out. You know, we had McAvoy, Reeves, CJ, Morrison, Ward. You know, they're not the Melbourne quality players, but they're still out of the team structurally. And I genuinely thought this was a real high-quality scrap game of footy with Melbourne's absolute A-grade stars in Gawn, Petrarca and Oliver took the genuine piss. So Melbourne fans, celebrate another win. You can, because it was a long time that you weren't good, so enjoy this one. Hawks fans, don't get our heads down. This was a really solid performance and a good indication of not only where we're at, but where we want to go as a footy club. So, coming into this year, I really didn't like St Kilda because they were just really inconsistent and I thought they were a boring midfield. And for the first 6 weeks of the season, they completely flipped me. After the Collingwood game, I was so justified. I had my high horse. I was in the Kane Corns Club of Arrogance. And then for 5 weeks, the Saints went, this is who we are. And I went, okay. And then they played at a bog in Cairns. I put my faith in them to beat Port, and they kicked 4 goals, 18. So, well done to Port. They got the job done, even if they did kick 5 goals, 13. But from me to the St Kilda Football Club, and for whoever was responsible for that mess, I've still got faith in you. It might be a little bit less this week, but there's still some faith there. They're still a finals team. Don't panic about this. But why the fuck you didn't play this game at Marvel, in which you absolutely could have kicked 18-4 and blew them out of the water, is mind-blowing to me. Yep, Cripps, Walsh, Kennedy, Sard, Mackay, all the usual suspects were great for Carlton, so I wanted to talk about Jack Nunes. The former Saint, under David Teague, had played a little bit of midfield and a little bit of half forward, and he's not a half forward at all. This revolution of him as a wingman, who when the ball is locked into the forward half still plays behind the ball, is something that he's really good at. He took 10 marks over the weekend, and he and a lot of players that are like him, they're going to form the nucleus around Carlton being contenders. Cripps and Walsh, they've proven that they can be good, really good, in shit teams. In order for Carlton to become a good team, Michael Voss and everyone else at Carlton has got to get these B-graders up and playing absolute career best footy. Continuous displays like this from the likes of Jack Nunes and others that could be potentially coming in or already in the team is what's going to make this a good team, and this was a really good start. A huge shout out to Jack, who was pretty maligned at the Saints and has been maligned at the Blues, even though he kicked an absolute ripper after the siren to down the Dockers. But this is the performance that Blues fans are looking for on hopefully a more consistent basis. A really good win by the Blues, and if it wasn't for Jai Simpkin, North would have lost by 100 points. That man is a star, and him, Nick Larkey and Ben Mackay are a really good start to a contending team. It's just the rest of North are just plain shit. Yeah, sorry, if Aiden Begg can get a game ahead of Mason Cox, his career is done. I'm sorry, it's just done. Darcy Cameron looked pretty dangerous. Yes, they were playing Gold Coast. I can hear the comments coming already. But Aiden Begg against Jared Witts, who, with all the ruck carnage that's going on in the moment, is the ruck 2 in the All-Australian team right now. And I thought he held his own really well. For us Supercoach players, 81 points, something to keep an eye on. But from a footy fan's perspective, not only did he compete, but he looked really calm and composed the longer the game went on. A really good win by the Pies as well, and for the Suns, it was good to see Touk Miller back in career form. Matt Rouse figured out that he can actually go after the footy in a good way and become another good footballer, which is fantastic. I'm loving Noah Anderson's season, but for the Pies, good contributions across the board. Nick Dacos still strutting his stuff, but this wasn't about the kids. This was about the senior guys. Scott Pendlebury just proving that he'll be not only a Collingwood legend, but he is, a walk-up Hall of Famer, and I know that was the case even 3 years ago, but what he's showing this year is his versatility. He is such a Swiss Army knife for the Pies. That is going to be so helpful in terms of development as well, and his ability to mentor halfbacks and the midfielders as his career dwindles down, and his performances are not dwindling at all. Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. I'm really happy for the Pendles. I'm really happy for the Collingwood youngsters. And this was a really mature win because Gold Coast came at them a couple of times. Adrian Dodoro's reputation is a funny one. Essendon fans have loved him at times, been frustrated at times, and wondered what the hell he was doing at other times. But right now, this off-season is going to be the biggest test for him. He needs to figure out who has trade value to stockpile some picks and really get into the nitty-gritty of building this team again. I think finishing 8th last year was the worst thing that could happen to the Bombers because I think they held off on trading guys. They could have if they had finished 9th or 10th, and they eventually got trounced in the second half against the Dogs, albeit with pretty shit umpiring, but no one expected Essendon to beat the Dogs anyway. They need to figure out what holes they can leave in their side in order to draft with. Dan McStay is going to be a free agent. Let Collingwood go after him. Let the Dogs go after him if they want to do that. Let St Kilda go after him if they want to do that. Don't go for him. Draft guys. Harrison Jones, Peter Wright, and draft another one. That's all good. Zach Reid can absolutely stay in the team. Build around that. Where's Nick Cox's best position? Archie Perkins is a bit out of form. But you're looking at the Dylan Shields of the world. Not pushing for high picks. Stockpile your picks and then work your magic on draft night and back in your scouting. Essendon are miles off a flag, and they're not going to do it by topping up. They're going to do it by trusting their process, trusting the coach, and getting kids through the door and as much experience as soon as we can. They need to do it quickly, so I'm putting this out there now. Essendon are under the most pressure when it comes to the draft in 2022. So Melbourne are the best team in the competition. That's of no surprise. They're here. I think there is massive daylight, and then it's Brisbane. Now, coming into last week, I would argue that there was Brisbane, Sydney, Freo, and it may be another team or two sitting on this, but it's now Melbourne, daylight, Brisbane, daylight. I know Freo are really, really good. I know Sydney are really, really good. And Brisbane did beat them on this occasion, as I tipped that they would. 7 out of 9. That's 3 weeks in a row. Just a bit of a shameless plug for me. But why that chasm has opened is that Brisbane, for decent parts of this game, weren't playing A-grade footy, but stopped Sydney's momentum at key points, especially in that third quarter, and had another gear to go to. I think Melbourne have got an extra gear to what Brisbane do, but Brisbane can go to another level. I don't think Sydney, Freo, and these teams can go to Brisbane's level yet. It is Melbourne and Brisbane's to lose. Fingers crossed they do finish first and second, so they don't meet until the grand final. That would be amazing, but there's still so much of the season to go. I understand that. But as we sit here at the end of round 7, Melbourne and Brisbane are so far ahead of the rest of the competition, it's not funny. We hear it coming into every year. And this competition's so even, we don't really know what it is. Yeah, but that's not necessarily a good thing, in my opinion. This season has gripped me and captivated me in ways that previous seasons haven't. And I think the reason is we know who the really, really good teams are really early. And whether they're our teams or not, they're always going to be amazing to watch. Ask anyone that lived through the 01 to 04 period for Brisbane. If your team wasn't playing Brisbane, they were the most fun team to watch. Melbourne are uber impressive to watch. Brisbane are amazing to watch. Fremantle are amazing to watch. Sydney are fantastic to watch. It is awesome having teams in the competition that are so far ahead. Now, if you don't barrack for one of those teams, and I certainly don't, I've still got love in my heart for what the Hawks are doing, and fingers crossed you do for your club as well. And you know that it's going to be an uphill battle to get to where those teams are going. But being able to see that there is a mountain in between where you're at and winning the flag is really motivating for players and for clubs, for franchises, however you want to call them, to actually climb that mountain and get better. Instead of needing just an extra 2% and maybe some luck on a grand final day, having to actually climb the mountain and get 10, 12, 15, 20% better is going to be better for the competition and raise the standards when it comes to finals. I want the finals to start now because it would be outrageously good to see this top 8 go at it. To think that we've still got 4 months of football left is so exciting. I'm not a massive fan of not knowing who's going to win the flag or be in the finals this early. I love having the challenge set, and I think a lot of fans feel the same. For the Tigers, how do you go past Tom Lynch's 7 goals, even if Shea Bolton was genuinely outstanding? For the Cats, Tom Stewart, 40 disposals, mopped up everything. He eked out Blake Acres pretty comfortably in terms of the point system. That's why I couldn't give it to Blake in such a close game. But honestly, those two could be switched if you want to give it to the winner, and I don't think anyone would complain. I've been a little bit of a critic of Josh Kelly. I think he hasn't been as damaging as he could be. Fingers crossed this would be the step ladder required for the Ds. I mean, Gawn, Petrarca, Oliver. I mean, it's a fait accompli at this point, and what's amazing to me is that they've got so many other good players who don't feature in the votes. These guys are just A+, 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 and it's good to see Dylan Moore, after a career best performance, get there as well. Jack Steele picks up the 3 in the St Kilda Port Adelaide game, even though Port got the chocolates, and good to see Ollie Wines back happy and healthy after his heart issue. Looks like Cripper's got this Brownlow medal by the absolute pills, and Matt Kennedy was outstanding as well. For the Pies, well, it was Touk Miller in the Pies game, but for the Pies, Jack Crisp was probably one of their best along with Darcy Cameron, but I think the Pies are going to take more out of this, that their bottom 6 played so spectacularly. They're not going to care if they don't get the 3 votes in this one. Josh Dunkley was the standout player, of course, in the Bulldogs-Essendon game. You couldn't give it to anyone else. I bet the Dons wish that they could have gotten Dunkley, considering how hard they chased him in the last 2 off-seasons. It's got to be said. And Lachie Neale was the best player on the ground for the Brisbane game, with Luke Parker Sydney's best. And how good was Bud in that third quarter? That was frightening to watch. Let's get to the leaderboard. And Patrick Cripps, like I said, he's got this one by the pills. He is on 14 votes with a smattering of players on 11 there. Clayton Oliver and Lachie Neale, I think, could be the 2 big shifters in that, with Andy Brayshaw as well. But that's it for round 7, guys. How did you go? How was your weekend? How did your tips go? Another 7 out of 9 for Daz. Oh, goodness me, the big fella is flying. I hope you enjoy your week. Plenty to come. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.